whenever you are. I'd like to call this San Juan County Planning Commission meeting to order. It is April 13th, 6:04. In attendance tonight, we have Ann Austin, John Johnson, Ed Dobson, Lloyd Wilson. Staff, we have Scott Burton, Ben, Tomko, Mitch Mon. We have Sylvia here tonight, and I think Max in the other room. If everybody would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, I lost my mouse. Oh, there we go. Let's make sure we have the quorum. If everybody's had a chance, we'll take a minute to go over the minutes from the last meeting. Were you here last meeting, John?
Shall I lie? Yeah, I was here.
It seemed like there was a duplicate
Carrie, can you see
repeat
Michael?
of something.
Like in my bedroom, I think.
Print out.
Can I take that?
On the last package?
Yeah, when they got to the public hearing, I don't know if it's a big deal, but it looks like it's once or twice.
Simon? Perfect. Thank you. I don't know if you saw me or not. Yep, I'm in there.
Which part?
And that's
Public comment was
Repeated.
repeated.
Oh, okay.
It's under public hearing and then it's also under. I can delete that out.
Do you have anything else, Ann?
No, that's the only thing I noticed.
Underneath, on the side, there should be letters.
Motion with the changes?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
I'll
approve
second.
the minutes with that change.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. John. Okay. We'll be going to public comment. This is for all comments, whether it's on the agenda or not. This is the time that's set aside for that. When we get to items, in the administrative items, legislative items, there will be no public comment in that time period. So now is the time. Everybody will have 3 minutes. We'll start with anybody in the house first, and then we will go to online. So, go ahead.
I have a hand up.
Perfect.
My name is Colby Smith. I'm from northern San Juan County. I want to share with you some data that I came across that I think may be relevant. Oh, sorry. Do I need this? Some data I came across that I think may be relevant to your consideration of the Balanced Rock Resort. This is a study of nightly rentals in Utah from June of 2022. It's oddly enough, it's a study by the Kem C. Gardner Institute at the University of Utah. Kem Gardner is the gardener of Gardner Plum. He's obviously a very successful real estate developer in Utah, a good one at that. The study said that Spanish Valley has 51 nightly rentals as of June 2022, and that represented 22.7% of all the dwellings in Spanish Valley. It's a high percentage already. And because of that, Spanish Valley ranked 10th in the state among cities or defined areas in the number or the percentage of nightly rentals compared with the overall number of dwellings. It's table 4 of the handout that I gave you. That ranked it higher than Moab City, which was ranked 15th. Unincorporated Grand County ranked 8th, which is very close to Spanish Valley. And I think this is important because if you think about what you've been asked to do, last meeting you approved 100 nightly rentals. This meeting you're asked to approve 347 of them. If you add that up, that's 400 and that just the 51, 100, and 347. That's 498 nightly rentals. There are only 140 dwellings in Spanish Valley where people live, the 450 people who live there. If you do the math, that means that after all of these approvals, there'd be 78% of all the dwelling units in Spanish Valley would be nightly rentals. It's just an incredible percentage, higher than any other place in Utah. And I just hope you all will ask yourselves the question, is that really the kind of community that we want to allow? Where the proportions are, that seems to me out of whack. So anyway, I hope you'll think about that, Lloyd. I remember the meeting that was held at your office that one time. There was a lot of concern among everybody in the community about nightly rentals. And I think you all have the power to say no to this. And I hope you will think about it hard. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Holly Sloan. I'm from Northern San Juan County as well. Just a few additional points that I want to make on the Balanced Rock sort of overview. First of all, from my perspective, there's really nothing that compels you to approve this. This request is for a rezone, and you have complete discretion over whether or not they get the rezone. It seems to me that they should be required to present compelling reasons for a rezone. A lot of thought was put into the area plan, and the SVR zone is a key part of that plan. So you shouldn't set aside all of that planning lightly, and especially not where there seems to be a lot of reservations in the community. Second, this was never an area where residential flex was supposed to go. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change it, but in the original vision of Spanish Valley and in the zoning that was approved, it was very clear the residential flex ordinance says it belongs closer to the highway and the gravel pits. Third, if you're inclined to recommend this proposal, because I understand there's a strong economic motivation to do that, I hope you'll consider requiring them to apply for the overnight accommodations overlay before you approve the PZ zone so that we have full transparency of exactly what they're asking and exactly what they're proposing to give back to the community, and not just the community that's going to buy their properties, but the broader community that's going to be the workers for them, that's going to sustain that property. That's it. Thanks.
Anyone else in the house? Scott, we got anybody online?
We got 2 online. We got Monette Clark and Marlene Huckabee.
Just they have to unmute it.
Yeah, it looks like
So-
Marlene unmuted. So,
Marlene,
and Andrew Austin as well.
can you hear us, Marlene?
And can you hear me?
Yep, it's your
Okay.
time.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for watching our community and taking good care of us. I want to talk a little bit about the Bounce Rock Resort. It's a great name. We could do a little number on the name and call it the tipping point, because this could be the tipping point for Spanish Valley. And if this is approved, you might as well throw us under the bus, because it's going to make a huge difference in our life. So when you're voting, I hope you consider that. We all that live here love this community, and we do not want all of the amount of rentals that would go in there. So thank you very much for what you do. That's it.
Thank you. Monette?
Can you hear me, commissioners? Oh, good. Well, I want to just say that I hope you will not make a favorable recommendation on the Ballast Rock proposal or application for a rezone. I got to thinking myself about what's the proof that this community that they want to put in will outweigh what the detriments that this will bring to the middle of our Spanish Valley. And they haven't showed you one shred of evidence to prove that this is what is needed and wanted in Spanish Valley. In fact, we who have been here to your meetings for years and watched you don't want this and feel it's not a wise place to put a residential flex zone, and certainly not overnight rentals. There are places that the Spanish Valley area plan has already called out for residential flex, and this is not one of them. I ask that you not chip away at the Spanish Valley area plan. This was passed in 2017 and represented a lot of work from Landmark Design. And maybe they did a bad job with the ordinance, but I think they did a good job with the area plan research and the community involvement. Therefore, I do ask that you not make an unfavorable recommendation, or ask that you ask the developer to bring back their business plan to you. And I don't know why the Planning Commission cannot review financials. That's part of your job, isn't it? To save the commission time as you review these kinds of applications. So you should look over their proof that they can bring more benefits than detriments to the Spanish Valley and even to the county at large. We are not a cash cow to be milked. We are not a sacrifice zone for the San Juan County. And you can tell I feel strongly about this. And again, please stay with the Spanish Valley area plan. Don't do what Moab did and keep making exceptions and end up with a downtown that looks like Moab. Thanks so much. Appreciate all of your help, your service, and all the time you spend on your volunteer positions. Thank you.
Thanks, Monette. Andrew Austin?
Hi, commissioners. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. Yeah, this is Andrew Austin, and I live in Spanish Valley, and I just wanted to comment on the zone change request for the proposed Balanced Rock Resort. Personally, I live 2/3 of a mile from Highway 191. I just wanted to point out that's right in the heart of the Spanish Valley residential zone, much closer to the highway than the parcels that are in question. and doing some research, it's very clear from the Spanish Valley zoning map that the residential flex zone is intended to be adjacent to the highway, commercial, and business flex zones. It's also intended to serve as a transition between highway, commercial, and other uses. I would ask the commissioners to please refer to the description of flex development areas from our San Juan County Spanish Valley area plan that confirms the intended location and purpose of flex development areas as a transition between highway, commercial, and other uses. I just wanted to quote from that plan that the flex development areas are located in close proximity to US 191. They are well located to capitalize on highway traffic and highway access opportunities. These areas should be buffered from nearby residential neighborhoods. I would urge the commissioners to refer to San Juan County's planning documents for guidance in their vision on whether or not to recommend this zone change to the county commission. It's very clear from these planning documents that the intention of the flex zones is to be a transition between highway, commercial, and other uses. To allow for a spot zoned residential flex zone would be short-sighted and represent poor planning. I urge the commissioners to have patience as these types of developments are already taking place and they will continue to take place legitimately in their intended zones. I know that if you don't live in Spanish Valley, I see the commissioners here tonight are most of our local commissioners, but if you don't live in Spanish Valley, it's easy to see Spanish Valley as a sacrifice zone for the county. But I urge you to please consider the wishes of the residents of Spanish Valley. The application for rezone to residential flex for the proposed Balance Rock Resort should be denied because the parcels in questions are not located adjacent to highway, commercial, or business flex zones. Thanks a lot for the time and opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the administrative items. Consideration and approval, conditional use permit, Indian Canyon Ranch. Joe Tosca? How are you?
All right, how's it going?
Good. State your name, please.
Joseph Tosca.
Tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
It's a small off-grid campsite. I put in a couple of trailers and a school bus. They're all converted into queen bed living quarters, basically just for overnight rentals, with solar for lighting and maybe an inverter for plugging in small items, but no water or utility hookups at all for each unit. That's 3 units total there. And then there's just 3 basic campsites with like a picnic table and a place to put up a tent. The rental units go from $65 to $85 a night, and the campsite's $25. It's pretty basic. It was kind of supposed to be my retirement plan. Right now I'm working at the Merc as, part-time to make up some other cash. But anyways, that's it. As you can see, I think everything looks good there. So you see the yellow one, that's the school bus. That's kind of up on the hill. That's more of an isolated unit. And the purple one, the purple rectangle, that's the purple Airstream. And then in the center, the blue units, one is like it's a little cabin with a deck and a roof over the deck for shelter. And, during windy, kind of a lounge area. Hang a hammock there. And the other blue rectangle parallel with the yellow school bus is covered counter and kitchen sink, and there's cupboards and drawers and cooking utensils and everything. Propane camp stove, just like a 2-burner Coleman. Pretty simple setup. Just basic amenities. In the cupboards there's condiments and stuff, and And then that's the central area right there. There's a picnic table, and there's a fire pit, which I provide wood. I've been clearing this property for years and burning my wood. And part of this process, the guests actually burn a lot of my dead wood that I don't burn in my fireplace. But anyway, the green one is just another little historic. It's kind of a early 1970s camper, and the orange spots are campsites. And the two blue units that are kind of flung up to the north there is where the shower house and the current outhouse, which I realize are not going to be approved by the health commissioner, but that's my current structures. And that white spot at the very bottom, that's the water tanks that feeds everything, because that's up on the hill. I've kind of tried to place everything separate. They're a little bit far from the center, but that's for privacy and to give people, a feeling of being on their own. And that's part of this whole thing. I don't want to build like a big development here. I just want basic camping with just a few units that I can sustain simply without a lot of infrastructure and without crowding, and just make a small living. And the other side of the property, I think that's further below it, but my house is on property, so I'm on site.
If you go down to this map on there, it shows all that.
Yeah, that's the full overview. There you go.
Little one. I think it's the last one in the right there. So this is just at the top of Devil's Canyon.
Okay.
You can see Devil's Canyon right at the bottom. So that's, you come out of Berger, and the Dew Ranch turn is right over there, and then so that's where Long Canyon. So yeah, in between Monticello and Blanding.
Yeah, I'm in the middle, 10 miles south.
Is it a pretty wooded area?
It is, but you can see I've been,
Cedars and pines?
yeah, nice trees. I've been clearing and I groom every tree individually. If you look at it, I pull all the lower branches off completely. I get rid of all the dead wood. I've been clearing. It's a groomed forest, the type you can just walk right through without having to step over dead logs and duck under trees.
So those couple camp spots that you were showing off to
Right.
the side, are
Those
they
two, yeah.
individual fire pits at these?
There is a fire pit there, but it's not it's just it's a solid ring of rocks. But at the main site, there's a real camp fire pit. It's like 5 foot long, and it's concrete, and it's about 20 inches high. And it has a built-in grill. Those are for convenience, and I know there's fire concerns, and those can all be gotten rid of. They're just pull the rocks and bury the hole in and be done with them. It's kind of, when it's summertime and there's fire restrictions, obviously we're not doing fires,
Right.
but it's kind of nice to have everyone consolidated in the center to begin with. But and like I said, I'm on site. My house is just, I don't know, it's like 500 yards to the west, and the road from Brushy Terrace goes past my house. So they stop at the house. I meet them and I take them over to the campsite. And so they know where I'm at, and I'm always available. And that's the shower house, outhouse, obviously, the little green camp trailer with the deck. School bus and the Airstream with the deck. That one has a fire pit too. So like I said, and see, that's my legit fire pit above. Those can all be gotten rid of if I have to. This is very clear. You can see it's open. There's like one tree, a big pinyon behind the picnic table, but other than that, it's that's the most open spot on the property. And that's my house with the circle.
How many people max
Um,
can you?
each unit could theoretically sleep 4, so 3 units, 4 people, and then you've got 2 or 3 campsites could be 4. it hasn't been that way. It's usually, I mean, mostly couples, but each one, it could be, up to 4, because I've got spare beds, like a futon mattress that you pull out if you want the extra bed.
What if a group of like 30 people wanted to have
I don't know what my restrictions are, but it would depend on those, obviously, and if the price was right, it would have to be, I mean, it would, yeah, man, it would kind of overwhelm the facilities for one. That's not really, it's not built for that. I mean, I don't want a big thing. Yeah, I don't think, yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to do that. It'd just be too crowded. You'd have to put tents everywhere, basically. And then what do you do in the kitchen? Everyone has to, in the bathroom. And even when I put in the septic, which I was, ironically, almost happened today, but I ended up here and work. And so Jim was ready to dig this today. I didn't know he was going to be, but anyway. But no, I don't like that idea, actually. I got to live here too. It's like living in Spanish Valley. I don't want to overwhelm the living situation with overnight rentals. I agree with you guys.
And these are your only concerns in this?
Those are standard conditions that we've placed on similar ones. So, yeah, if there are any other concerns, there was some concern about the road access down to there, but it's a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
Winter and mud season, it's pretty inaccessible down there.
Yeah. No. I'm one of the only ones that can get in and out regularly. I have neighbors who don't go anywhere, or they have someone come pick them up and they walk halfway out. But that's a whole nother thing, the road.
Who are the neighbors? Like public land, BLM?
I'm close to BLM. Bo Dalton, Monty Dalton has a lot between me and the BLM. And then I have some Hendersons. They have property. They're from Salt Lake. And then Card, they're from Blanding. Do you know them? I think he's a pharmacist or a jeweler. The Cards, anyways, they're from Blanding. They have a place across from me, and then Evan Black, and then Harry Frost. And everyone basically has 10 acres or more. It's a 10-acre subdivision. I've got 20. I got 10 acres. And so we're all spaced out, although probably 25% to 30% are occupied. The rest are open land. I've got 2 open land neighbors and 2 neighbors on my north and south.
Any concerns, Joe?
I don't know, is there any building codes or anything that's a concern? Any fire issues, road issues?
Well, Scott put must comply with the public water system requirements for water storage and pressure for fire suppression standards. Must comply with any state or federal fire restrictions, must comply with San Juan County fire policy, must comply with all building permit requirements, and must comply with San Juan County Health Department requirements and Utah State water system requirements. Yeah. So these would be part of the conditions that would be put into the conditional use permit, unless you or Ann or Ed have any other conditions to apply. My biggest fear is fire.
Yeah.
We went through this on ones up here about, if you're living there, you have a fire, you're a little more concerned about your property and your place, but when you have rentals and you have people that are just in and out, on a daily, that the fires become a hazard. And so my concern on it is I mean, maybe you have a central one that everybody can come to,
Yeah,
but not the ones around each little campsite.
that's reasonable.
So,
How does the neighbors in that subdivision, is it any of them care about it or complaining about it?
you know, it was on the agenda. Haven't seen anything.
As far as I'm concerned, if he meets all of the everything that Scott's showed here, that's fine with me.
So when we make this motion,
What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, my question is, so say we recommend this conditional use. At what point does the health department and or the fire department come and make sure that Joe's got everything in order and it's up to standard?
I'm working with Ronnie now, so that I'm not sure what I had to do about the fire. I didn't know about what. Somehow I might have missed that, but I didn't see about the water pressure for fire fighting. I'm not sure what that's going to entail. I'm going to need to see some kind of.
Storage is basically the issue. In case
Right, but I just need to see some kind of.
they can
And that really,
charge their truck.
that really comes into play if, like the scenario, if you do end up with a big group, if you get over 25 people, that pushes you to a public water system, which
Okay.
is a whole other level.
See, that's great to know. I mean, then your question is
and
moot.
those are the things
That ain't going to
we
happen.
should be discussing with Ron,
Yeah. Okay.
the health.
Health department, but fire. I didn't.
And yeah, we'll talk to it. There's a fire
Okay.
policy that you'll have to sign. That's we can get that to you from David.
Okay, because that could put a. It could change things a lot.
In an elevation where it falls within the wildland interface code.
I don't think so.
No.
Out there,
Just under 7,000.
so he'd be under lower than Monticello.
Yeah.
Just less than. So I think he's okay out there.
So then we're talking David Gallegos and then the San Juan County Health Department.
Yeah, and he's
Is the
working
two
with the department. He
main-
has his application in for septic. And that's why that's one of those conditions. This one has been in the process for a while and we've been kind of going back and forth and, anyway, in an effort to stop delaying him for so much, we figured we'd discuss it, and that's one of the conditions is that he's gotta comply with the health department. And they may allow him to start and open up this season with porta potties so that he's at least capturing it and everything will get pumped out.
Right.
Until he has it set in place. So,
Yeah, right now I have a basic outhouse with a receptacle that gets emptied, so it's not really.
Would we put a time schedule on making certain that's the all in a reasonable length of time?
yeah, that could be part of what you do if you'd like.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you don't rent it until everything's to compliance.
And that's the question is we've talked with the health department. I'm okay with him as long as he's, we've got to go prove up on some of this. We got to go take a look at some of the structures and things, make sure all that gets proved up, and then if the health department is okay with him doing porta potties, whatever he has a certain amount, I'm okay with him going. It's from a building perspective and from a health department perspective. But if you want him to, that's up to you. If you want him to hold off.
Well, I think the project should be in compliance with the health department and the building department and the fire department before any rentals are to be taking place.
I agree with that because we're going to see this
your
a
safety
lot.
factor is not there until you're in compliance. So without your compliance, you are not creating a safe place for your rentlers.
And
Theoretically, I haven't proved that I have safe.
Right. But you're also asking for a conditional use permit to
Right.
have that at this point.
I don't know that that changes anything from your perspective, other than just, we just need to make sure that
Right.
we're good with everything before we,
Right.
before you start renting, so.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So my only additions to Scott's list would be one central fire pit only, and then all compliances with health department, fire department, and building department before rentals.
Where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
That's reasonable.
I think so.
So
We need a motion with everything
go
that
ahead
has
and
been.
make a motion.
I can make a motion. A motion to approve the conditional use permit for overnight accommodations in Indian Canyon, with the following conditions. Must comply with the public water system requirements for water storage and pressure for fire suppression standards. Must comply with any state or federal fire restrictions. Must comply with San Juan County fire policy. Must comply with all building permit requirements. Must comply with San Juan County Health Department requirements and Utah state water system requirements. And in addition, the dismantling of the small fire pits in the campsite area. And that was all.
Yeah.
Oh.
Other than just this one central that we have good pictures of,
Right.
and then the compliance before renting.
Oh, right. So, yeah, making sure everything is in compliance before the renting of the campsites begins.
You good with that, Scott?
Okay, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other concerns?
I think this is a good policy going forward, because I think we're gonna have a lot of private landowners who are gonna become public land managers.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, and that's a lot of responsibility for a private landowner to bear without oversight, some strict oversight, because we've got a lot of resources that can go up in a hurry. It's all too recent of a memory.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Consideration and approval of conditional use permit, Fairview Acres. Alfred Hall.
Thank you.
Hi. I guess you want my name, right?
Yeah, state your name first. Thank you.
I'm Alfred Hall, and you need a little about me or what?
Tell us what you are here for.
Okay, I am here. I guess I'm here. Scott invited me. My letter said to present my petition for a permit. Is that right? Okay, Anna. And so that's why I'm here. And I guess Scott has it. I gave it to him. So
Yeah, so we've got the application. If you roll down, we've got an email where he outlines what is there. So that first line is my request, and then he said basically he's got one wall tent on a wooden platform with a queen size bed, and he has maximum 6 people. Bathroom facility is a small homemade kind of wooden commode with that's for basically an outhouse container. And then he has just the one wall tent
Yes.
and the bathroom facility. So similar where this is a, private campground. That's why we've asked him to come in for a conditional use permit. This is located off the West Summit Road, go all the way to the end of the West Summit Road. You take a right before you drop off 3-step down towards the copper mine. His property is, if you keep going straight and back in there, it's back in that kind of just south of, well, it'd be south and east of the, where you turn to go down 3-step, if you're familiar with that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm right at the top of 3-Step Hill. At the intersection there is the north west corner of my property. I have 160 acres there. Then this is it's a half a mile from that corner down to the other end of my property, which is the west rim of Little Indian Canyon. And so I butt up to BLM on the east side of me. And my family has owned that property since 1941. My parents, if you want to know a little about me, I'm not a Johnny come lately to San Juan County. I was born and raised at Summit Point, went to Summit Point School. And so I'm the third generation owner of this property. My grandparents migrated to Summit Point from Oklahoma 100 years ago and was a rancher, and they had a general store, and my grandmother was the postmaster out there. Many people don't know there was ever a post office out there, but there was. And so, this is just a little extra retirement income for me. I'm not retired. I'm not old enough to retire. I'm only 75. But this is I work full time. I'm a pastor. And being in Shiprock, I pastored the same church for 28 years. And but if this is my getaway place and extra income. And so it's mostly wooded. It's 160 acres, it's got a 27 acre little field on it and about a 5 or 6 acre meadow there but the west of that, it's, about 125 or 30 acres of sagebrush and timber.
So we're looking at 6
people,
max occupancy there.
one tent, basically, on a one wall tent. And my understanding was that you talked to Ronnie at the health department. Have you talked to Ronnie?
No.
I sent him this email, and he said as long as it's the same as you would have as a porta potty or whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest concern was just
Like a BLM campground or something.
In fact, I actually, it's a franchise I bought into called Tenter.com. They're based in New York City, but they it's kind of along the lines of B&B, only it's camping. They call probably and it's the tent on a deck, and it's got a cleared area for probably a half acre there that I pulled all of the brush and everything out of and got rid of. And for the tent, the restroom facilities is basically, it's just kind of a teepee tent. You see them by the beach and on the lake, and it's got a little wooden pot with a 5-gallon bucket in it and a toilet lid on it. And I brought this for show and tell. This is developed. This is what Tenter is part of the franchise that they do. And by the way, they have also got tent sites, the same setup on all the Utah state parks now. And this is the kit and you have the I'm country. It's an outhouse. So it's you have the toilet seat and a 5-gallon bucket and a plastic bag which this is, which has a chemical in it that NASA designed for space flights. This is on the shuttle and all the space flights for the astronauts to use. It's completely biodegradable. I change it out between every camper, and with instructions to the camper if they need to, and they leave extra of these, they can change it out if they need to. And then when I clean up after them and I clean everything, then this just flushes down my toilet into the septic tank, except for the bag. I keep the bag and I rinse it out, and it just goes into the trash with my other household trash. And so it's a tried and proved scientific method, if you will. So all my customers, I know it's probably not wise to offer more information as asked for, but I'm at your mercy, I understand here. But anyway, with the franchise that I work with out of New York, this is a standard. It's called a signature site. You can go to Tinter.com and that's the pictures that's on the website of my system there. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, I'm glad you went and did that, because I was feeling bad. The other guy was showing his pictures, and I thought I never brought any pictures. So that's a good view of pretty much what's there. There's the toilet right there. Yeah, it has a propane heater. I can switch it out to a wood heater if I want to.
In that pond.
Huh?
Oh, that elk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You saw the elk. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's on the other end of my place. It's about about 3/4 of a mile from the tent.
Yeah. Are we only dealing with just one? That's it.
As far as I can see.
We're gonna add some more, or?
This is a trial run for me. If it makes me money, I would like to add more. I have 160 acres to do it on. And so the franchise requests that we give each campsite at least 2 acres for privacy. So that wouldn't be close. I haven't even thought about where to put another one yet, but I'm waiting to see, and this one makes me money first. And
So it's just the one, right?
Yes.
So this conditional use permit would cover that one. So if you were to expand or go bigger, you would come back with a new conditional use permit.
If that's what we need to do, that's what I do.
And I feel it would be an echo to your last motion. Same thing.
Being only one small, like a family at a time, does it require all the water and health department and all that? I mean,
it does, because you are running it commercially. You are involving the health department. Something like this, I'm sure David's not going to blink an eye at
Okay.
with fire. But we do want to make sure the health department is involved, because you are now a commercial business. So, so you just want to make sure that everybody's safe this day. So
Yeah.
and that you are not liable, that you are following everything that's required by law.
Right.
That's the way I look at it.
It's also insured, for liability too. So.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, both of them. And
Yes.
you want to make a motion?
Okay.
Scott added one
Okay, which
to
was
make sure that that there is a business license purchased.
okay.
We missed it on the last one.
Yes, we did.
They're both in process.
Are they?
Okay, that's why they're here, is business license application, and then,
Gotcha.
well, this is conditional use, so.
Okay.
But I think, in my opinion, we could pretty well echo the last one,
Okay.
because I think you're more or less up and running, and I don't see you're gonna have any problems with the health department or the
Yeah.
fire, so. I mean, as it stands right now, you have one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Possibly a couple of fire extinguishers. I mean, it ought to be easy.
Central fire pit for one site.
All right, I'm gonna read it off then, right?
Yep.
Okay, here
so
we
you're
go.
making a motion.
I'm making a motion to recommend the conditional use permit for overnight accommodations on the property belonging to Alfred Hall near Summit Point with the following conditions: must comply with the public water system requirements for water storage and pressure for fire suppression standards, must comply with any state or federal fire restrictions, must comply with San Juan County fire policy, must comply with all building permit requirements, must comply with San Juan County Health Department requirements and Utah State water system requirements, must apply and receive a business license, and meet all of the above conditions before beginning the rental operation. Is that, miss anything?
Yeah, I think you got it all.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
You, I
The
don't,
only comment is just that it's a motion.
I'll
to
second.
approve, not to recommend.
Oh, it's to approve. Oh,
Just to
okay,
make sure that's-
thank you. All right.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And second by John. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, thank you all. Yeah, thank you.
Legislative items, consideration and recommendation, Balance Rock Resort rezone application. I'm gonna say this name wrong, Jim Schneppel,
Yes.
did I say it right?
Well, I said it wrong, so I think you actually are. right.
Okay.
So, yeah,
With Gardner Plum LLC.
yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
So I'm Jim Schnaple with Gardner Plum, and we're working on the property for proposing for a rezone for Balance Rock Resort. I think Scott has a PowerPoint, but I think I want to address a couple of the comments that were made earlier and the few that aren't on the PowerPoint. I think the first thing to say is that I think we all could agree there are contradictions in the ordinances. That was evidenced by the last Planning Commission meeting where there's a lot of frustration about the ordinance. And you also had to reach out to the county attorney to get her opinion on whether an overnight overlay could be applied to the residential flex zone. I won't get into that because we're not really discussing the overnight overlay, I think, in this rezone request. But she did say in her letter, one interesting part was in interpreting the meaning of a statute or ordinance, a court will first look at the plain language of the ordinance and must assume that each term included in the ordinance was used advisedly. She also goes on to say that it's pretty clear that in the legislative intent that the overlay does apply to that residential flex zone. But going back to the convoluted ordinances, there's Utah Code 10-9A-306 titled Land Use Authority Requirements. And number 1 says, a land use authority shall apply the plain language of land use regulations. And number 2, if a land use regulation does not plainly restrict a land use application, the land use authority shall interpret and apply the land use regulation to favor the land use application. So we have a property owner who owns the 72 acres, and we are working with him to try to keep his property rights and to add maximum value to his land. That's what we're trying to do here. And we feel like we are proposing a good plan for that land, but I realize some in the community definitely don't agree with that, but that's to be expected. Oops, sorry, I've got to move on to my next page. So sorry about that. So a rezone to planned community. There was discussion in the last planning commission meeting that we are pretty much surrounded by planned community. We're in what the property would call, or what the general plan would define as the central development area, which is basically the easiest, flattest to develop areas. And it's reserved for a wide variety of uses, including residential and business and some other uses. And there was even discussion that quite possibly this land used to be zoned PC at one point. We don't think that's accurate, but it's obvious that by that discussion that this land potentially could be zoned in that planned community. In fact, if you read through the ordinances where it specifies a small community must be at least 20 acres, there are only so many contiguous parcels left in that area that aren't owned by SITLA. It's almost as if the general plan and the ordinances were custom written to protect private property rights with at least 20 acres in them in order to do at least a small community. You could do a large planned community if you have at least 200 acres. It was quoted earlier that I think by someone on the phone that said page about the ordinances being, or the flex area being in close proximity to US Highway 191. I think a plain language reading of that is that it actually, let me read this to you specifically. It says flex areas are generally located in close proximity to Highway 191. I think a plain language reading of that would be generally located, meaning not exclusively located in close proximity to US Highway 191. And further, the definition of close is not defined in the ordinances and very well could apply to our project area that is under 1 mile from Highway 191. So I think it's pretty clear that a residential flex could apply to this land. Another person was commenting about the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute paper that came out. And Kem Gardner is part of, he's way up the chain. I don't really deal with him too often, but he's a good guy. We don't have any direct influence over what happens at the Policy Institute, but that in that same article, it noted that San Juan County between 2019 and 2021, their transient room taxes went down $205,000 during that period. And we have COVID in there, so that's going to be affected, obviously. But at the same time, Grand County went up $3,107,000. So that's a big disparity. We would like to have the county have an opportunity to do economic development, and we think Spanish Valley is a perfect place for it. Moab and Arches and that whole area draw in lots of people, whether we like it or not, that's the case. And this is a good chance for San Juan County to capture some of that tax money that's coming in. Another person commented on that they would like us, or like your deliberations, to wait until you were able to assess our overnight overlay application. We actually submitted that a few weeks ago, but the county decided that you should take these one at a time. So we'd love to propose that plan, and there's a lot more detail in that, but it's not in front of us today. Scott, if you would switch to that next slide. So I've emphasized draft plan here. Part of the application process is that we need to come up with a visual plan, a draft conceptual layout of our vision for the community. And I want you to know that this is just a draft plan. There's a lot that can change in this. The first step is approval of a rezone, and that will give us, I think, the planning commission's time, or the planning department's time, to start really digging into this plan, and we can work to refine it. I'm sure that it's not perfect. We talk in the office all the time. We think it's probably needs modification. We'd love to hear from the county to find out what we should do to this to make it better. Next slide, Scott. So at the prior meeting, there were some discussions about the density of the plan, or of this area. And I want to note that Spanish Valley, I can't quite see that slide. Let me open it on my computer. Sorry, I had it open and now I lost it. Okay. So currently it's zoned Spanish Valley residential, which allows 4 to 5 units per acre. The 5 units would be if we applied a PUD to the land. So basically you could put 289 to 361 units on the land if we maximize the use of it. Residential flex, this zone change that we're requesting tonight, actually has the same density. There's some ambiguity in the ordinances, and you could read it either 4 or 5, but basically it comes out to between 289 to 361 units. And I realize that seems like a lot of new product or new homes that would come in, but it's spread over 72 acres. It's a pretty big piece of land. And then if you look down on our actual conceptual layout, we actually have a lighter density than what's allowed by either zoning. If you were to count up all our units, including the 130 lodge units, the 220 residential units, that'd be a 350 total units or 4.8 units per acre. But as we've just discussed before, the lodge units being smaller in size and the occupancy rate being lower than a general residential unit, they get converted at a smaller rate to get equivalent residential units. So we have 259. Which comes out to about 3.6 equivalent residential units per acre, which is quite a bit less than what either of the zones would allow. And interestingly, if you look at Sitla's neighborhood center district, which is it abuts this property, it's right next door to the west, they are predicting an average density of 8 units per acre. And if you took that 8 acres per acre and threw it on the 72 acres for Balance Rock, you could end up with 578 units. So 578 compared to even 350 or 259, we're quite underperforming compared to the immediate neighbor. One thing that's come up in some of the discussions is water, and we're very cognizant of that. We live in a dry state, and we need to conserve our what water we have. Fortunately, we're right next to the new water development, that the tank up on the hill. The county's put a lot of money on that, and we would like to take advantage of that, the water that was planned for these first phases of development in Spanish Valley. And we want to work with the county to develop the best water use policies that we can apply to the project. Scott, I think I skipped ahead. I forgot. I started reading off my slides and not yours. Sorry. And then one more. And then the other thing is, so we've got identified here, the top 3 circles are detention ponds. The one on the left is a retention pond. So the detention pond will slow down any storm water and help have it absorb back into the ground. There is some chance of some of that overflowing into the existing drainage channel that's right by there. The one on the left is a retention pond. The purpose of that is to collect all the water and have it go back into the ground. So we would like to try to return the water we can to the aquifer. We think that's important. Next slide, please. Overflow parking came up last time, and we have put a little over an acre of overflow parking over on that right-hand side, which is shown by this circle. There are some other areas where we can add some parking if needed, and those are conversations we would like to have with the planning department to see what they recommend we do to make changes to this. Next slide, please, Scott. So connectivity, and this is basically roads and how to look forward and how do we better flow with the existing community and what's going to get built predominantly on the Sitla ground. We talked last time a little bit about the extension of Old Airport Road. We met with TJ out there, I don't know, a few months ago talking about this easement for East Allen. We had to clear up an easement issue with Sitla. But the Old Allen extension, which is that green line, sorry, Scott, I'm getting way behind. One more slide. So that green line in the center of Sitla's land there is the extension that can be done. And we'd like to participate on that. We're happy to put some money into that to help build that road. We think it will make, it flows better for traffic coming out of our area. I think it matches the long-term road plans for the area a lot better. Also, I think it's going to direct traffic to continue west to use 191, whether they're going north or south, rather than using Spanish Valley Drive. So we think it's going to improve the increase in traffic situation there. Next slide. And this is a copy of the survey from the purchase and sale agreement from when the county bought 10 acres from Sitla. You can see on the south edge there that the county has identified half of that right of way for the extension of the road, and Sitla has pledged to donate the other half, just the south edge of that. And so the alignment is clearly identified and the land's there. I think it's a good time to build that road. It makes much more sense than using East Allen, which is a kind of a odd shaped or odd routed road. It goes around some Sitla parcels in a weird way. Next slide, please. So in looking at greater community connectivity, it's a little bit hard right now because Sitla obviously owns lots of land around us. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. We have some general ideas from the plans they've put forward, which are shown on this. But what I've gone through here, and I've drawn these light blue lines, these are some obvious areas where we think that we could potentially connect out to the greater community. And we are happy to work on these and refine these with the county. I think connectivity is very important. What we do need, if you switch to the next spot, Scott, is we need to get direction from the county. We need help with how their feedback for our interior roads within our community, and we want to know how they see the bigger road plan in the future being laid out, and so how we can play into that and help participate in that. The phasing of our project, I think people look at the density and you see these 220 residential and then the lodge, and I should say that I don't know if the lodge will ever come to fruition. We hope so, but it's a long shot. So I don't know if that will. But as far as the residential phasing, we're not going to suddenly have 220 homes up out of the ground. It's going to be phased. It's, you might see 25 or 30 the first year and so many the next and whatever. I don't know the exact timeline, but they're not all going to come online at once. The good news is about that is there's existing road infrastructure there that I think will handle those initial phases of traffic with no problem. I think when we get down the road and we're bigger developed, it's built out more, then we're going to need to have more road accessibility. And I think that we can work on that with the county, with Sitla and neighboring property owners to get that sorted out. Next, Scott. Okay, so I will give you a sneak preview of what we did put together in our overnight overlay application. We agree that affordable housing is really important, so we took all of the lots on that north end of our property. There were 14 single-family lots there, and we converted them to 7 duplex lots and 1 fourplex lot. That's up to 18 dwelling units for families that will be affordable or locally employed people. We would like to work with the county to define that, because honestly, I don't know specifically the needs that are needed and the price points that need to be hit. But we would like to work with you that and figure out a system where, I don't know if you want deed restrictions or some other way to control that, whether those kept to initial buyers or long-term, if they get sold down the line or whatever that is. But we would like to help address the housing shortage here. I've been working on developments in Moab area for the last 5 or so years. I understand the housing problem for locally employed people. And then the one thing on that, we're talking like on the duplexes particularly, our original thought was nothing along this whole front row would be allowed for overnight rentals, and it would be restricted to locally employed people, whether they own the property or whether they're renting the other side or whatever. The other thought was that you could change that to short-term rentals if you want on just one half of the side of a duplex. I don't know. That would give that property owner who's locally employed more income to pay off his mortgage and stuff like that. But to me, it doesn't matter to us one way or the other. We would like to have the county tell us the direction that you would like to see us go on that. What makes the most sense for how you see it. Next slide, Scott. So we've talked a little bit about the economic impact, and I think it's pretty clear that doing this type of community would have good positive tax income for the county and increased property taxes. Some of them would be secondary homes, which get taxed at a higher rate than primary homes, and then you also have the transient room tax. Next slide. Further to that, and I think Commissioner, you had that comment last week.
I'll be back.
Oh. When is Sitla going to start digging? I have no idea. We actually have a meeting scheduled with Sitla next week to start to talk about some just coordination issues and things like that. But you can see what's interesting is their Sitla Neighborhood Center borders our property. And so I think in helping them to get off the ground with their businesses stuff, if we can establish a core constituency of residents and visitors, that will help them support those businesses. So I think that will also have a nice economic impact for the county and their planned neighborhood center there. The next slide, Scott. And then finally, the one thing I think there's been a lot of commentary about overnight rentals and the use of whether that's an appropriate use for the property. And we look at that in 2 ways. One, we're taking a 72-acre piece and we can master plan it to try to get in front of the problems that typically come in when people checkerboard overnight rentals into neighborhoods. And it's pretty interesting to look. If you look at the immediate north of the neighborhood, and we can go one more slide, Scott. Within 1,000 feet of our property boundary, you can see approximately 5 or 6 homes right now that are used for overnight rentals. Some are licensed with the county, most are. And we're not an anomaly. If you count the number of homes, it's about half of them there, or maybe not quite. I'll have to count about half that are within 1,000 feet. They're actually already zoned or already using overnights. And then I just happened to do the next one, Scott. Oh, that yellow star on the top is actually that's an RV park taking overnight trailer rentals or RVs. So I don't think we're too much of an anomaly for the neighborhood.
That's an overnight.
Yeah.
Or not marked.
Yeah. And then the next one. So these are ones being advertised. I just picked a random day on VRBO, and you can pick a bunch of sites. I came up with 16, 15 count pretty regularly being advertised for overnight rentals. I mean, you can see how packed they are. And in talking with people who live in that area, they're telling me that's vastly underrepresented, or largely, I shouldn't say vastly, I don't know what the right emphasis there is, but there are more probably than what's being shown here. So I don't feel like what we're proposing is out of line with what's already going on in the neighborhood. We would just like to master plan it so that we can get in front of the problem so that the neighbors know what they're getting into up front when they buy into this community. And that's all I have. Any questions?
So this presentation, is that something that we can receive like this, or is this your
Scott
material?
Scott has a copy of it. You're welcome to it.
Because it sure seems like it would be nice to get this information sooner than.
But they can also do a presentation when they show up. That's part of why they show up, is to present their
Right,
project,
and I get that. I think it would be nice to be able to have some time to look at all of that.
So I did try to email a letter to everyone, and whether I have the correct email addresses, I'm not quite sure. But I sent that out, I think, yesterday, and then I had to go through and do the PowerPoint after that.
Okay.
So I did try to get out the info, and it was kind of a moving target. Things have evolved, on an hourly basis. So
just to rewind a little bit, Scott. The road access coming in, I'm seeing where Sitla had this plan where Old Airport Road hit Spanish Valley Drive, they were going to dogleg it over a little bit. That's why the clinic, they paved it. It's offset from each other, the clinic road and Old Airport. So there was a plan Sitla in the future was going to dogleg it. That's why the clinic had moved that entrance over. And so we talk future. Sitla's kicking in 50% of that. When do they do that? When does that road get put in? So on and so forth. You get up past, I want to say the back side of Mitch Kellings is all Sitla too, which separates him from Allen. But then we run there's a little piece of Sitla that separates Mitch's from Allen Street. But then we get right there to the corner of, what is that? Is that that little stretch heading to the north? Change his name, I can't remember. Anyway, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 residents right there. That's going to become the main vein for this subdivision.
Yeah, until that road is connected through, right?
Right. Yeah. So at this point, my biggest issue is driving through and near these residents, because I mean, what are you talking? You're talking 362 cars a day. I mean, 700 and something cars a day driving across that road. Old Airport Road's already industrial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, the road needs improved. It's industrial. There's one little house that sits right there by the ground, but they've been there forever. So, but my biggest concern is from the clinic in.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 700 and something cars a day. I mean, just
Yeah.
in perspective.
And there aren't really too many houses on that part of East Allen. You know,
No,
most of the
but they're
houses
still-
over right next to our property.
But they're
So
still right.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I don't care if it's, you know.
yeah. And it won't. I actually we did a traffic analysis. I could share it with you guys if you'd like, and we could look at those numbers. I agree with you, and that's why we were pushing this old airport road. We would love to do that, and it sounded like TJ was in favor of it.
So bringing it from a different area than
No, so just connect it from Spanish Valley Drive, right at the corner of the clinic where Old Airport Road terminates,
Right.
and then go straight across. Well, into the lower part of East Allen. I don't know how to get it down below without Sitla's.
Those are the ones I'm concerned.
I see what you're
about,
saying.
is
Yeah.
the ones beyond the clinic.
Right,
So once you
right.
tie in after it turns back past
Yeah.
Midge Kelly, then you've got, you know, there's a couple
Right.
residents right there that is adjacent to that property.
Yeah.
And that's the ones that I'm
Yeah,
concerned about.
if we can bring Sitla to the table to define that new alignment, I'd be 100% on board with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that in the least. I mean, it's easy for us to change our plan at this point. It's harder to get Sitla to say yes, you can have this road alignment.
Right.
And but maybe you guys have more influence than I do with Sitla. So.
I mean, I don't. What's the other option?
Problem I've got is, and that's a real small, narrow road with lots of turns, and it just ain't made to put that much traffic in. I would be totally in favor of this project if you carry that road out there.
And that's what
Old
they're
Airport.
that's what they're doing.
It is for
Yeah,
sure. Okay.
because I mean that was part of the county's plan when we
Yeah.
purchased the land for the clinic and you know future road department, so on and
Right,
so
yeah.
forth.
Yeah,
But still, these are the ones I'm concerned about. These are the ones
Yeah.
we're adjacent to.
Yeah, that's just a poor access. Really
It
poor
is.
access.
It is.
And it just,
Did you happen to talk to David at all about a second access in there? Was there any concerns?
I talked to the road department. I didn't talk to David about it, but yeah, I mean they would definitely like to get that old airport road connected in, which I think that's a fair condition that you would, you know, that you would put on it.
Yeah,
Would
I'm
have
not
to
sure.
be- The participation agreement would have to be included in this with the county, so,
Right.
in the development agreement.
how do we handle that? Just-
Oh well, it's
Basically, I think the way the planning commission would just say you recommend that is part of that, you know, that your recommendation, if whatever that ends up being, is that is a condition of it, that they enter into a participation agreement on the road, and that the road be built
right.
in order for this to happen.
Okay.
So, and then the details of that are hammered out at the development agreement with the developers and the county later, with the county commissioners and everything, so.
And we're talking residential flags, right? Which is, it does call out 100 feet from any adjacent residential district boundary.
Do you know what that distance where you were showing that you would potentially not have the overlay on that, on the overnight accommodations overlay
For
on
your
that?
employee housing.
I can't remember the depth of the lot, so I might be able to find out. Let me see if it's
does
called
call
out.
that you have to be 100 feet.
I think
No non-residential uses within the RF zone shall be permitted within 100 feet of the adjacent residential district boundary or any existing residential use. Residential uses within the RF zone should be designed and located as transition to adjacent to nearby residential neighborhoods and uses.
Yeah, I would presume though. I think the road right away I think is 50 feet, and I'm pretty sure those lots are at least 50 feet deep. I can dig that up. So
That cluster across.
I think that
whole
north
thing.
end, I would guess those are more than 50 feet deep. I can't remember. I can't remember the number offhand.
And they would be willing to do deed restrictions on them?
Absolutely. Yeah. If that's what the county wants, in some conversations with the county, we've been told that the county doesn't really like deed restrictions. We're pretty ambivalent. It doesn't matter to me.
I love
So
the fact of deed restrictions where it is a primary residence only and a 3% annual cap for
Yeah.
up to 10 years.
yeah,
And that starts over for the next person.
yeah. I like giving people some upside. I want them to make some money. So
I mean, it's worked in Eagle County up by Bell for
Mhm.
a lot of those people that couldn't afford to live in Bell. They lived in Eagle, and
Yeah.
there was deed restrictions where they made affordable housing, and you could only make 3% every year.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
to 10 years. So, I mean, I think that's the only way you are going to keep a affordable housing. I mean, that's the only way you're
Right.
going to do it. Because I mean, you look at all the projects that Moab and Grand County's done for affordable housing for these kids, government subsidized, and then they turn around and sell them for $800,000. They don't have a house, but they've got a pocket full of cash for a minute. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just a
bad.
terrible design.
Yeah.
So on this zone change, Scott, because we're not looking at anything but a zone change right now.
Well, and that's something you need to define as well, because I think it could be that this is the first step of the PC zone plan approval. And if you wanna clarify that and say that that's not the way you're seeing it, then I
No,
think you
because
need
we have to
clearly-
do a zone change before we do.
So that's, I think if you, whatever your recommendation is, I think you need to be clear that that's what you are recommending. Cause it could be inferred that this is a step one of a PC zone plan approval, rezone. So, if you're not comfortable doing that yet, then, I mean, and you're realizing that you're a recommending body, you're making recommendations
Right,
to the county
exactly.
commission, one way or another. Whatever your recommendation is, the county commission is the decision maker on this.
Mhm.
They'll be the ones that it'll still go forward to them with a positive or negative recommendation from the planning commission. So.
And is there any proposal from the developer to bring the old airport road up?
To extend it, or to move it all together.
To put the road in place for the development?
Yeah. So the way I haven't read through the purchase sale agreement when the county bought the land, but in there it states pretty specifically that Sitla, the county, and other landowners will participate in the development of that. What balance that shakes out, we're more than happy to participate. I don't know, what's fair or what's right, but we're happy to have those talks and sort that out.
Because I know, like, me and TJ were talking the other day, and anything that they're looking at doing in the future would be a contract with the bond.
Mhm.
That way, one building gets put up, and all of a sudden there's no money, and then
Yeah, it's done.
there's
Yeah.
money. There's
Oh,
money
perfect.
there to finish building the road, whether your project.
We can definitely bond. That's not a problem at all. And we could also work out some type of reimbursement agreement for future, uses of it and stuff like that. When Sitla starts building theirs, I don't know how motivated they are to participate in building a road where they don't have anything yet. So,
Thoughts?
I have thoughts and questions, lots of them.
Go for it,
Go
Ann.
ahead, ask.
Okay, well, so from what I've learned about rezone law, or what the issues are when it comes to a rezone, is the question of desirability. Is it desirable, the proposed development? Is it compatible? And for me, right now, with the existing, what is there on the ground, it is not compatible. It's not even desirable, because we don't have the other pieces in place that we're trying to put in place to build a community, like with a broader public, not isolated tourist community. Like if that was what we were trying to do, then our ordinance should say San Juan County Spanish Valley Tourist Planned Community, you know. So I see a glaring lack of concern for the residents, and I haven't seen any kind of community benefit proposed from this project. Like a bike trail, or that's the one everybody throws out. Connectivity, you did mention connectivity in those little blue lines. I don't fully understand what that represents. Connectivity from what point to what point? Is it connectivity within your resort community, or
No,
the
those-
public is going to have access?
Yeah, so we have neighboring private landowners with easements that have access easements through our property. So we can't gate this off and shut them out. And also, we would like to have connections there were some I showed at the north end and on the east end. Some of those blue lines indicate areas where we could get out into like sitla ground and stuff. But I don't really have much control over what sitla will permit or not permit. I could, what the county would like to see, I would love to approach sitla about adding these roads or what makes sense to them, or have those talks. So yeah, I would like to have our design, our layout fit into a greater community road plan. But the best I have at this point is kind of Sitla's plan that went through. I can't remember how long ago that went through, but it got approved. It's kind of a general overview of where they would like to see roads, but those aren't nailed down yet.
Well, from the perspective of a resident, that property potentially blocks access to Ken's Lake that we can have right now. So
how do we block it?
Well, I mean, if there isn't a way, like right now there's an existing trail that you can hike up over the rocks and over to Ken's Lake from the neighborhoods.
But are there, I don't think any trails go through Spielman's property, do they?
No,
they come across Sitla right there.
Okay.
I know
Right.
which one you're talking about.
But, the idea is, I think as a resident, we still want to be able to use
And
a path.
Well, we're going to
not
add trails
blocked out,
within.
not be gated out.
Sorry. Yeah. And we don't have any, I know that the gating and the walls came up last time. It's part of the community fears. We've done communities both ways, and we don't have any firm opinions on how that should go. I think in this case, it probably should not be a gated community. So that's my sense. And I think the bigger thing is more of our gated stuff has been in isolated little areas that we can just neighborhood off. This, I think, needs to flow into more areas.
And so the other concern I have, is just still we've got the plan. I like the idea of sticking to the plan. The map has the residential flex where, we paid professionals to come up with that map. So veering from that plan doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Who's to say Sitla doesn't sell their land, a 20-acre section, and that person comes and says, we want a residential flex zone change to that. Potentially, that could happen, right? I'm not sure what I'm missing there.
Yeah, I remember you had that comment last time about creating kind of a cascading effect. And I looked at that, and Sitla would be the obvious example. I mean, they tie up most of the land in the valley, but there aren't very many 20-acre parcels that are big enough to go into the planned community zone. So I don't think it's going to be a domino effect. Sitla's kind of a wild card. So if you go to them to buy land, let's say I pick a nice piece of land that Sitla has, they're not going to sell it to me directly. They throw it out to auction to go to the highest and best bidder.
And then we're here again looking at our zone change potentially outside of our plan.
Well, yeah, I can't control what Sitla does.
Well, I'm just putting out hypotheticals. Yeah. Opening this door, we have to think of all the scenarios that we're setting up the county for. The argument that flex development should be close to the highway, and that's kind of arbitrary. But if you look at our valley, east to west, it's, I don't know, how many miles is it across? We're pretty tight in there. There isn't a...
Oh, 2 or 3 is all. That ain't a whole one.
Yeah, it isn't a lot. So, I mean, you could argue, well, anywhere in the valley could be considered close to highway commercial, the highway. So, I don't think that's a really good argument either. I'm concerned about how much pressure this puts on our existing water supply. ERUs, I just feel like, you know, we are going to need more. And this is just a lot right off. You know, we should already start planning. I mean, I guess I'm wondering how much this would put pressure on current plans that are going to force the county to have to pony up money sooner than later to get us another well fast.
It's not the county.
Or I know, but the water district, but they get water from. I mean, they get money from. What's your main source?
Just
users.
Users. That's it.
Well, so we might. I mean, could they not? Is it not reasonable to say that we get ourselves in a bind here where we're going to have to go to other sources and say, hey, we need money to go find more water?
But as long as water's available, we cannot deny it to you.
Right, and I'm not,
That's
I'm not
the problem
suggesting that, but
coming
I'm just
from
saying, you know, I'm concerned about the pressure this is already putting on our existing plan
Right.
with Sitla, you know, and because this is outside of our plan. I guess I'm also really curious what Elaine has to say, our expert in economic development, if what Colby mentioned, where we are looking at potentially 78% short-term rentals or overnight accommodations in our valley, is that a healthy number? I mean, is that sustainable? You know, I would just like to hear what your perspective is on that kind of demographic, you know,
having
change.
having been in Grand County for 6 years and living through that, and having now been in San Juan County for 18 months and seeing what is currently happening in Spanish Valley with people just doing whatever they want to, and overnight rentals just popping up wherever, and RV parks. At least we have a planned community here. We have a plan that we're looking at that makes sense. And yes, you have to work out the roads and how the traffic's going to flow. But I really think in looking at what they're proposing, I think it is the right thing for Spanish Valley. We don't know what Sitla is going to do or when they're going to do it. It could be years off, could be 5, 10, 15 years, who knows? And we need to look at some type of revenue growth for San Juan County. We lost population in San Juan County. We were the only county in the state to lose population, 1.1%. Our poverty rate is 25% here in the county. Our unemployment rate, 4.25%. Whatever we do and whatever increases are faced in the county is going to come on the backs of the current residents, who are going to have to pay more taxes for everything that's going up. I think this particular development is definitely a nice, makes sense. They're talking about affordable, you know, house. I mean, they're already looking forward. We're working on the trail system that is going to be slightly south of that, where there could be a connection to that trail, the LaSalle Loop Trail, the Spanish Valley Trail that Grand County's putting in along that road. That'll all be connected, and the encouragement for people to ride bikes and travel without a vehicle is what's going to be encouraged. I know definitely in Grand County, and I think that's the direction that we want to take in Spanish Valley, that we get people out. I definitely think the fact that they've got a strategy, a plan for this community, rather than just right now it's so haphazard out in Spanish Valley. It's just a mess out there. The whole people doing whatever they want, overnight rentals and residential and RV park. I mean, it's really a shame.
But there's if there was wherewithal, that could all be reined in.
At a cost, at
Of-
going to court. Because we've got
Everyone.
overnight rentals that are in residential,
But
and
there's a lot of them are illegal, right?
some are illegal. We're going through that right now, where we've identified overnight rentals that are in residential areas, and the properties that have been sold by the real estate agents have been sold as overnight rentals, and they're not.
Erroneously.
Yes.
Right.
And so now we are going through, we have a whole batch of those properties that, because we're monitoring all the business licenses, and we've got quite a stack, which means we have to go to court now. And the county doesn't have the money, we can't afford to have lawsuits.
So this
but-
resort could help us pay for these lawsuits.
Well, I think it could do a lot of things. It could bring in a lot of, TRT tax revenue is the fastest way for the county to bring in much needed revenue. We don't have rail. We don't have a major airport. We don't have a major highway system on this side of the state. So for us to bring in any type of small industry, we need to make some changes. And again, if we do not look towards some type of managed expansion of housing of some sort in this San Juan County, it's going to be on the backs of the current residents. I mean, people are leaving San Juan County. There's not much to offer here. So I think we have to think about our future. And again, in Sitla, they own a lot of land, but who knows when they're going to decide to develop anything. That, again, it could be a long way down the road. So I think that a planned community as they have it, I wouldn't say gated, I would say no, not a gated community, but a community where people could flow through and you could walk and enjoy the trails and that. And the people that come here could tie in. But I think it makes sense to look at that because it's the first step into something that is truly managed and makes sense to do instead of haphazard where people are just going to put in overnight rentals anyway.
But aren't we ultimately going off script if we have this plan and that feels haphazard too to just rezone out?
Personally, I think that you have to begin bringing in some good developments and not just a home here and a home there. And I'm in total favor of it if they'll upgrade the roads because there's a lot of land out there and there's only 8 or 10 homes that's actually affected by this. It don't large property owners, and I think it's a pretty good spot in it. And somewhere we have to begin some real planned growth. We spent, I think, around 10 million on the water and the sewer. Part of it county, part of it Sitla, part of it the state, and we done that not to make the valley explode, but we can't keep dividing up in acre lots where each person can have a well and a septic tank, because that hurts that aquifers and stuff a whole lot worse than a public water and sewer. And him and I have both spent years and years on that board getting this done, and mainly to keep the upper end of the valley from turning into junkyards. 2 acres here, 5 acres there. We need some good planned development.
But we have Sitla, and I know you said we don't know when Sitla's going to.
You don't.
But
No
the
idea.
development.
No, we
but
don't.
they're vested. I mean, there's a certain amount of time that they have to start their project. Remember that was part of the
No, I don't.
their.
got to that point yet.
No.
You were talking about occupancy. What were you talking about? 70?
Oh, the 78%. With this
Grant-
development, Colby was saying that we would be looking at 78% of our population having short-term rentals or overnight accommodations.
But the you can't compare that with this study because there's very few people out there, very few, and part of as we grow and expand, we want controlled overnight rentals and not popping up in subdivisions.
So what is
And
the
I
healthy
think
amount
that
of what is a good percentage? What is a healthy amount of?
I don't know the total. We're actually working on, we're going to implement a housing assessment. My office is working, and we have a committee, and we're going to assess entire San Juan County. We're going to do one assessment for San Juan County, and then one assessment. We're going to approach the chapters of the Navajo Nation so we can do an assessment for them to determine what the needs are. But I think we're right. I mean, having lived in Grand County and seeing that there was really no plan, even when tourism started to increase, when tourism started to increase and it started going 10%, 15%, there was no real plan put in place to protect residential areas and then have overnight accommodations. So I think looking at,
we do have that plan
yeah,
now.
so looking at
if
what
we
we're,
stick to the script, we
I
are in a better shape than Grand County.
yeah, I think you're going about it looking and, planning it in the right way. But I do think that people do want to come here, 3 million people.
They have the right to.
It's public land, and everybody has the right in this whole country to visit a public land, whoever you are. They want to come here, and it's a good thing because it could be just the opposite, that people don't want to come here. But again, it has to be managed in a way that we know, okay, that's a community where there will be overnight rentals. They'll also have some type of housing for maybe employees that are going to be working locally. But then we also have our residential area, which right now, if you look at Spanish Valley, it's a mess out there with everything.
Well, that's rude.
It's like the old, I say it's like the old West. I used to drive from Grand County into San Juan and say, oh my gosh, do they really know what's happening up there in Spanish Valley? And so, you want to keep the part residential that is residential and not allow for more overnight or RV parks right next to residential homes. So I think when you're looking at this development, it just makes sense to say this is going to be our first footprint, and maybe that will help SITLA decide, for their planned community, what they're going to do.
Well, we wanted it to be the other way around. We want SITLA to establish.
I don't think
the
SITLA
community,
moves that.
Because they have schools.
They don't move
like
that.
this
They don't
resort.
move. They won't move that fast.
No, it could be forever
So,
before they do one
just
project.
real quick question. TRT tax. How does the state make you allot that money?
The 4.25% that is collected comes. It's collected by the owner of the property, and then it is sent to the state, and then the state sends it back to us with their deduction for handling charges. It's like 0.08%, I think.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
Exactly. So we have the TRT funds that come back, and some people pay monthly, some people pay quarterly, and some people pay annually. And I have a record of everyone that pays TRT tax. And if they're not paying the TRT tax, and some can switch from monthly to quarterly to annually, but we know who's paying tax, how much tax. It's all proprietary. I had to sign, a document, but we monitor that information so that we can see, okay, this looks a little strange, because the goal is we have to have that revenue coming in. The 4.25% comes into the county, and then it's divided up between, it goes into the general fund and it can help with roads and, you know, a multitude of things to help the county. And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
The way it was explained to me is that TRT tax, the state requires you to spend it on certain things, advertising.
Through the
this and
state code.
Yes.
There's a state code.
But if you are able to put it back into the general fund,
There's a portion that does. It's like, it could be, say, 70-30, 70 to the county and 30 to our department to run
Right.
tourism. Those
See,
aren't exact numbers,
My
but
biggest thing about night rentals and things like that, you know, on ours, it's $6,000 a year is what our property tax is, not including the TRT tax. So the county road department gets nothing from the county out of our property taxes.
oh, the property taxes, but they do get out of TRT tax for the B roads. I think it is.
How large a portion is it?
I'd
Because
have
the way
to.
it's explained to me is we get nothing.
Mac would have, or a county administrator would have how those funds would actually be distributed, the portion that goes to all of those entities within the county that receive TRT tax. So TRT tax is going to be the fastest way for the county to increase revenue without raising taxes.
Right.
And if we don't start generating, you know, more TRT tax, then, you know, how do you pay for increased everything? Materials to fix the roads. And
Doesn't sound like we're getting very much to
We're
do
not.
that out of the deal.
we're not. I mean, the TRT tax collections, you know, I mean, Grand County has like 5,000 lodging rooms, and we've got 500. So we have some, you know, growth managed, and I say managed growth because we want to make sure that you're in charge of, you know, reviewing and approving, but you can manage that. And this Balanced Rock Resort is one way of being able to do that. So, and occupancy, when I was in Grand County, the occupancy, full year occupancy was about 64%. The lowest occupancies were in December, January, and February, where they dipped down to 20. So you're not going to have 700 cars going back and forth every day. It's just not going to happen. You'll never have 100% occupancy just because of the weather and times of the year. So hope that helps.
Yeah, I appreciate you speaking to that because, it's, you know, you're the economic development person, although I'm feeling like it's more like the tourism
It's
department.
scary. It's really, well, tourism is economic development.
I know
It
it
is.
Only economic.
Well,
We
I
have,
know.
if you pull tourism out of San Juan County, you don't have a whole lot
can
left.
take-
You got Lisbon Valley and
You
you've
can
got
take
Energy
Grand and
Fuels.
San Juan back to the 80s. That's where you're at.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but there's some
oil and gas from.
All
And-
our stuff fell. There was nothing.
It's all reservation.
And you know what, people say we don't want to be, we'll never be Moab. We'll never. We don't have the entrance to the park. We don't have the Colorado River right here. So we're not going to be Moab. And you all can manage the growth as it starts to move forward. But we have to have some kind of growth in San Juan County, or we're just going to continue to decline. So we have to show some type of growth. And we have to get the state, because we're the left behind county, we have to get the state to look at our highway system. Again, we don't have rail. We don't have, you know, a major highway system. And we don't have a major airport, you know, a regional airport. So we're behind. What's left to try to lure a business to come in here? So we have to have a little bit more tourism, a little bit more TRT in order to help us to move the county forward. So if you want to come down and look at other, you know, we $94 million is lost in San Juan County in sales tax because we don't have the businesses, we don't have a lot of the sectors here. And if you want to see that report, I have it and I can share that with you. But $94 million of sales tax revenue is leaving San Juan County and going to Colorado, you know, Grand Junction, south of us, Moab. So we have to think about, you know, and I think about it every minute of every day, how I can help San Juan County lift this county up. But it's tough, and we're going to need to find some revenue somewhere to be generated in order to help us. So.
And we have a plan. You know, we need those potential developers to come to our highway commercial corridor into our residential neighborhoods and develop.
I just kind of disagree there, though. It originally started out as PC, and then when the map came in, it got changed.
We changed
It was it was a mistake that it was PC, right?
But it
originally.
I look at it. I don't think it was. I mean, I wasn't here, but it just fits in.
We changed
if
that
you look
map
at
in
it.
21.
Yeah, that's the original map.
Yeah, I've got the
So,
original.
I mean, if you look at the original map, that's
It was half PC, half SVR.
and the SVR part was just a small section,
Thank you.
but the majority of it was PC. So and I apologize for being late. It's been a long day.
But my understanding is that they couldn't zone that PC because that was private property. They were just trying to zone Sitla land, and it was accidentally grouped into Sitla land. But that's why y'all changed it, because you realized, oh, we accidentally put private property, marked it as PC.
Mark did.
Or marked it, sorry.
Mark didn't do anything we asked as a board.
And so
Not
that's
one
why
bit.
Lloyd went around and checked with all of the residences.
Yeah, and everything that we put in play and the work we put into it was completely thrown out the window.
I know. Well, so those things, yeah. But still, this is what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
And
I
the
think we
way-
set
the
ourselves
way-
up for a land use
but
appeal if
you
we
gotta
go off
remember-
script.
But you got to remember when we did this whole the original scope, and then we went into this new ordinance. The way it was brought to us is this is our starting point. Now we get to start. We even had this conversation way back in 19. Now we have to go back through and start changing things to make it work for everything. Do you remember this conversation?
I think so.
I said instead of us doing it right from day one, we're just going to do this, and then we're going to go back and fix everything later on. That's why I was so disgruntled about Mark and Landmark design on this, and so here we are. Now we're changing things. So that was the thing, is now we got to get this in place, and then we can change it and make it work for everybody. But now it's in place, nobody wants it to change. So that's why I'm having such grief with it, is everybody was, you know what, it's fine, let's just get this in place. This is a starting point, and then we're going to make things work. We'll change this, we'll change this, we'll change this, change this. Well, I knew as soon as it was set in stone by the commissioners, you were going to have everybody fighting every change that's made to it, and I knew it.
But not with the map. The map, you
Yes,
have not had.
absolutely. The map was one of our worst parts of the whole thing.
But once you fixed it, you
We
haven't
didn't
had any
fix it. All we
complaints
did
about
is
the map.
changed-
I don't think.
We changed the highway commercial line and got it because we had pieces that were put into SVR that have been existing businesses on Sunny Acres for how many years?
Right.
Those are the things we changed, is because you just took away all those property rights. Or
Right.
not you,
And that was understandable.
and so that was the only things that we changed on that map, was to get it back to the way it should have been without changing everything that Mark had laid out.
Mhm.
And so I am all for this, other than the road. I want to see the road brought up, and I don't know if that discussion will be between with a county agreement to make sure that this is a feasible road for the potential amount of vehicles that'll be coming in and out daily. And I mean, I have 8 nightly rentals on my street. The people coming in and out of the house 17 times a day, each one. It's funny. I mean, they just do. Some of them come play all day, and so. But yes, the potential of the amount of travel that will be on that road is substantial, and so.
Well, and I think we addressed a little bit. I mean, Trent, it's his big thing, and he's not here. I don't know if he's on the call or not.
He did it on purpose.
But we talked about spot zoning. I mean, we've got
This is not spot.
This is not spot zoning.
70-something acres.
Yeah, and we tried to do 20 acres at Elk Meadows. We kind of came up with that size.
Yep.
And thought that's big enough not to be a
Yep.
spot zone, and we are
And Trent missed
over
that.
3 times bigger than that. I like the idea of coming with SITLA, the county, this community, and planning on the roads.
Yeah.
So I think I'd make a motion that we recommend to the county commission to approve the rezone to residential flex.
With anything.
No, just for now, I just would recommend the rezone. That's
What-
my motion.
Can I make substitute or amend that one?
Maybe.
Yep.
With
you
the
sure can.
with the overlay accommodations application. I think we need. I liked what Holly made a good point. We should see the overlay accommodations plan they have.
I'll just stick with the original. My original
I know, but
motion
she
for the. I know.
went over yours. She changed the motion.
What?
Well, yeah. So I'm just saying, I would just make the motion that let's put it before the county commission and recommend the rezone. We'll let them hash out the overlay in the next step. We won't include this step as the first step in that process. We'll let the rezone happen if the commissioners feel like they feel it's appropriate. Last time we took something before them, they did not.
So Scott, real quick. So the rezone is not approving a subdivision.
No.
So the fact of everything we see on this drawing in this subdivision, by changing the zoning, we are not approving that subdivision, correct?
Well, that's why I say you need to be clear, because they have provided everything for step 1 of a PC zone plan. They've provided a preliminary community structure plan. They've proposed permitted and conditional uses, maximum number of residential units, and maximum square feet of non-residential development. So those things have all been approved, and that's what's described in their plan. So.
And I did hear that on the call, and I did hear how this is the first step, but we kind of did that before, and then we didn't get quite that far with Elk Meadows, but then the county commission did their own thing anyways, so.
I think you need to make some conditions with it, because if you just approve a carte blanche like that.
Yep.
They've got approval.
I think so too.
They have a recommendation, but I think the county commission will look for recommendation on conditions.
Yep.
They'll expect.
You gotta have some conditions.
To recommend some conditions if you're gonna recommend it, as the way I see it, so.
Okay, I mean,
and those conditions, like I mentioned, may be that you require in the development agreement a participation agreement for the road, that that has to be in there. But again, you're recommending those conditions.
But I don't think we should start the PC process at this point.
That's exactly
I
where
think at this point we are just doing a zoning change. We are not considering this as the first step of the PC, because we need to be able to go through it and make sure that we have a road agreement, your
the overlay,
the county
just a reminder, so the PC zone plan, first step is a rezone. Second step is the community structure plan, which they've basically already given you. as the second step of the PC zone plan. And then at the third step is a contract between San Juan County and the individual entity. So at that point, then we get into the details of the contract. I think at this point, your conditions, you do have, yeah, there are definitely development conditions that you can include that, that San Juan County, that you're a participant in road improvements and infrastructure and whatever else, but I mean, I guess.
But
I
is
don't know
this
if we're-
a PC application?
It's
It's a rezone application.
To go into the PC zone residential flex.
I think you're fine with what you're trying to do, Roy, as long as you
long as you're clear.
specify that.
Yeah.
You know, just put that it is a rezone, a recommendation for approval of the rezone only.
And not
And not.
going into the steps of the PC.
Exactly.
And that
That's
gives
what
us
you
some
want.
time to start getting all those conditions in place.
Isn't that what I was doing? No?
No, I just
If you
wanted to
can
make
be,
sure.
like you're saying, if you just, and that's why I said you just need to be clear that.
That's why I didn't include any of that stuff, just to be clear that, I mean,
That this is to rezone only, this is not a step
Right.
of the PC.
right. And that's what I felt like I had verbalized my motion
It
was,
and I think
was just to,
clarify that this is not
no, it is not.
Helps to make
step.
it, yeah, make that clear.
Can we ask Mitchell a question?
Yes.
Can you speak to what our county's liability would be if are we in any way not following our land use code by rezoning this property outside of our existing zoning map plan?
No, there's no real liability involved.
Or, not liability, is there anything illegal about zoning, not following our zoning map, I guess is what I'm asking.
No, you have the prerogative to do that. I kind of like your views myself, and I don't think there should be a zone change, but if you guys feel like there should be, then, yeah, you have the prerogative to do that.
We can go off
We just
script.
recommend it, we do not.
Right.
Yeah.
It's ultimately up to the commissioners, but
Mhm.
still, I don't want to hand them a hot potato.
Right. Oh, it will be a hot potato.
So basically,
Right.
what you're saying is that with Cody's recommendation or proposal, or whatever you call it, we don't get into the road issue until a little
Until we
further
start
down
doing
the
the
road.
process of PC. And so we do not have a second on either of those motions, so they both fail. So we can start with a new one.
Make it again, I'll second it. However you wanna do it.
I will make a motion that we recommend for approval the rezone application. This does not include the first step of the planning. What do I
Plan
wanna call
community.
that? Planning
PC.
PC. Just, we recommend the rezone. And then we'll revisit, the motion stop. And then how I envision, we come back, we revisit after the commissioners TJ, the road, what the commission sees happening with the road, maybe some input from Sitla, what they are willing to do, and begin
On the road, yeah.
the PC process then.
Okay. I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Question about this. What are the potentialities of this? Is this ultimately to try to figure out, or does this give the planning commission more what do you call it?
Teeth in the game.
Right,
Yes.
more control over more aspects of this development proposal.
Yes. Yeah, if it was to maintain as a SBR, it's broken into quarter acre lots and whatever goes in there. With it going into PC, now as you go through your planned community chapter, and then
But it does open it up to the overnight side.
yeah, and then you get into chapter 10, your overnight overlay, and you start going through that. So there's a lot more teeth in the game with this versus 70-something acres
Subdivisions.
subdivided into quarter acres, and then just houses being thrown up. I mean, there's no control over it at that point because SBR, that's permissible,
Well, the
So,
only
where
control you
this-
would have there
Trailer
is
houses
that
or
it
anything
wouldn't
else.
be overnight.
Right.
None of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
but
would be the only thing.
But it would be, they could come in and subdivide.
The overnight accommodations is implied with this rezone.
No.
No, they have
No,
to
it
come
isn't.
back. I mean, we
They
have to
have
go
to do that.
right back to the proposed permit of the conditional use, the maximum number of residential units, all of that.
So they'll be doing their PC stuff, just like SIT was done, and they will be doing the overlay also. So now there's a lot more process to this going this way.
So I just want some clarification. Are you proposing the rezone be to PC or to be to residential flex? PC residential flex.
Yeah,
Yes.
there isn't just a
Yep.
separate zone called PC.
The ordinance calls it
I thought the original application I saw, was
Yes, and that's what's been throwing me off.
But within PC, you can request.
right here. Basically, their proposed zoning
Where's
that they're
Elise?
applying for is for planned community district, small community residential flex. They don't have enough acreage to do a large community, so
Right, so it's a small community.
So I just want to make sure that you're saying they'll apply the PC zone,
yes.
residential
Planned
flex.
community district, small community residential flex,
Mhm.
just like it says there in the application.
Okay, but we're ignoring the rest of their application on permitted uses and conditional uses, the maximum of resident. You want to hold that off till,
Yes.
till a later.
Yes, the motion is just to recommend to the commission for planned community district, small community residential flex, zone change approval. Is that clear enough, attorney? I mean, really, like, Alex would keep me out of trouble, so.
You're saying I don't?
No, well, we haven't tested it yet. I'll test you.
So if there's no other discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Against.
3, 4, 2 against.
3 in favor, 2 against.
Motion carries. I don't know, it's so long, I don't know what's on the other.
I was gonna say, what's next on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
little late comment.
Uh-huh.
As a guy who's sitting here, I would love to have owned that 72 acres and figured out a way to make a bundle of money within the existing ordinance without any changes.
So would we all.
And I guess I voted against just because I want the commission, the county commission, to get a sense of the nature of the debate. It was close.
Correct.
I
Yep.
could have gone the other way.
Right. Next item, Spanish Valley Stormwater Master Plan, Greg Poole.
So
Hanson?
I don't think he's on tonight, but because he presented to us again
Last month.
Yeah,
Mhm.
last month. I just included the same motion or same item because you didn't act on it, so just but yeah, he wasn't planning on joining in unless we needed to call him. If you had specific questions, I could.
So, my specific question on that one is what exactly are we approving on that? That's
What action do you want to see?
trying to get there. I don't know how to do it any faster, Scott.
Oh, no.
That's still right. You can, if you go to the top.
I'll let you do.
If you just go up all the way to the top, then you can select.
Oh, you can just click on the number. Huh. That's handy.
So this was a 50-50, that this was paid for 50% by, 50% by San Juan County. My understanding is that this puts into code and allows us to protect these sensitive areas that are marked on the plan as areas that need storm drainage infrastructure. And so that's where this plan is of value to us to be able to restrict and limit development housing from being in places where they will flood. So, and it gives us a plan to move forward
So if we
towards.
feel like legally the county can't restrict that now.
Now we can't.
Okay.
Right, so this gives us the ability so that when people come in and wanna develop, we have some data, first off, that they have to develop to. There's now, okay, this is what you have to develop to, and that gives them a standard. And I may be speaking out of turn, I don't know that I fully understand the whole scope of it like the engineers do, but that's my understanding.
So, I mean, is this over really the Corps of Engineers on Pack Rate?
It's a good question.
I mean, that's.
I have no problem in using it and recommending it. I would just be honest, a lot of it's over my head.
Right, and that's my biggest problem with it,
I don't wanna just say, well, you put it in front of me, so I think it's good, but I'll be honest, it's super complex and.
How expensive is it?
Yeah, I feel that they've done that. Simply
engineer.
because I've lived there for 50-some years, and I've only seen 2 or 3 floods that really hurt anybody, and it's very few people. It ain't like it's big old draws and canyons that get full of water. It's most of it's pretty controllable by just putting it into the right existing washes and drains. It's in most of it. I don't think it's controllable, and I don't think it needs control. So.
Just to, and you remember from his presentation, he mentioned that the natural soil there is very, it filters, it drains as fast as any soil.
Absorbing.
It absorbs as much moisture as any soil does. The absorption rate is very high. So yeah, currently I don't know that there is much of a problem, but as we develop, that's when
more and more hard surface
put
and
roofs and they put driveways and roads.
Well, and county liability, I would think it'd be a big part in,
But that's that's my concern is that, and there are certain areas that as we do increase the impermeable, that then it will start to become, it's not been a problem ever, but it may become a problem, and that's what this is trying to identify, is that there are some areas that will become a problem if you put in
Fill them with houses and pavement and all that
yeah,
stuff.
and pavement, and all of a sudden that water
Right.
that was just absorbing is now running to places and into homes and that kind of stuff. That's what we want to avoid. So, and if you have specific questions like that, I can
well, that's the other thing is,
send them on to the engineer. He can
if
provide
we
a better
don't
answer.
understand it, how do we enforce it?
Yeah, I'd
I
hate
mean,
that.
so say somebody brings in, okay, I want to do
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
You know, they have an
How do I
acre, they
apply
wanna
this?
subdivide it into, quarters, so now you have a minor subdivision. If you were to go to their map on this, I mean, the one that was up above it, it's very vague on their map. But I mean, you look at stuff like this, it's like, all right, where are you located? So, you know, where a FEMA map is it's colored out and outlines of what your flood risk is.
Right, there's
in a
flood
certain area.
elevations. And I don't, this I don't think gets to that kind of detail, but what this does is it proposes, like, I think in here,
Somewhere
like,
had like lot size, didn't it?
and if the lots, like, if they are, then they have to put in a, dry well,
Retention.
rain gardens and dry well sumps, pre-treatment to capture and infiltrate runoff from a 10-year storm event. So, or some, you know.
See, and our building codes require us to do swells in the yards. I mean, that's part of our building codes. If you don't have a storm drain system in place, you're required to do swells in yards.
And this, I mean, I don't even need to feel any pressure here either. I mean, it's
How do you
obviously-
feel about it?
Well,
because you're the enforcer on this, so.
yeah, and I have questions as well, like you're saying. Okay, how do I specifically apply this now to developers, to individuals, someone wanting to build a home, or divide and build a subdivision with 10 lots, or whatever, you know. However, there's lots of questions on, okay, how does this specifically apply? Because there isn't specific, like, that I can see, like you're saying, floodplain elevations, you know, like you would see in a FEMA map or whatever, and specifically outlined. So, and we can ask those questions. Better to get the answers and have a better understanding of it now than push it forward if you're not comfortable with it. So if you want, I mean, I can maybe write out some specific questions.
I
If
just
you have
worry
any-
about like what's hidden. Does that make sense? You know, it's kind of like all of these ordinances we try to go through with a fine tooth comb.
Thousands.
Make sure you find all future problems.
Yeah.
You know, but then if we accept this as our, you know, the county's legislative, whatever, you know, storm drain standard, and then we'll come back later and be like, well, it's in the plan, it has to be this way, and we're like, well, we didn't really mean for it to be that. You know, that's where I have the hardest time. I mean, I don't have a list of questions, to be honest.
I don't want this to be a waste of money, you know, the effort that was put into this, but I want to know how it's enforceable. And I want to know how it's easy for you to look at it, look at its location, be able to interpret its enforceability in a certain area.
What is it that is the impact
Right.
on
Mhm.
planning?
Because I know of a couple. We've got the one at the end of West Coronado, and it just after that.
Is that Kimberly?
Kimberly subdivision went in.
Yeah.
We talked. I mean, how many times did we
Yeah.
talk about a retention pond, but we couldn't enforce it. And so now we're there, and there's two houses right on the end there that you should see their yards. And we do have the issue. I mean, every time it rains, because you've got all those lots in that road that run right down to it.
Yeah.
So there is things that we do need to make sure that we're able to have a little bit of authority over, just because you are potentially flooding your neighbor, but at the same time,
and the authority to be able to deny people certain places.
Right.
I mean, to just for a county liability and you issued us a permit and to build there, you know. Well, we didn't want to, but we couldn't stop you, you know, and then it floods, and so.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a real problem even accepting it. It's just that caveat of, I'll be 100% honest, I don't necessarily understand all the future impacts on planning and zoning in the building department.
my main thing is just to make sure that Scott knows how to apply it. If we're gonna recommend it to be adopted,
How
that
flexible is it?
we need to make sure that it is something that is
Personally, I
enforceable.
think it's kind of overkill. I mean, I really do. The top end of that valley drains right on down into Grand County, then to Moab, and they get the worst end of it. A lot worse than the upper end of the valley on every rate. And I just think he's brought up the worst case scenario.
Oh, absolutely. That's
And
what they do.
Think it's overkill.
Well, engineers can take a easy to use stop sign and turn it into a roundabout. Only an
Turn it
engineer
into-
could come up with that.
Just dump it into those pits out there and then go back into the aquifer.
Absolutely.
That's
Well,
best way in the
eventually, I
world.
think that's what
Well,
they need to do. But- So we are going to table this again.
I'll
Until,
try and get some more clarification, and if I get that back, I'll get it sent back.
because if you understand it, I feel comfortable with it. I mean, because you are the one that's ultimately going to enforce it. Ben is ultimately going to enforce that. So, but yeah, we do have some minor problems with some of these bigger subdivisions going in. Just, the permeability is gone. We are seeing some runoff. But I think some of our the master floodplain thing, the Pat Creek, if you actually look at FEMA's mapping through Grand County, you know where their widest floodplains are? At every one of their bridges.
Yeah.
They're the problem. Stocks, it was their culvert. The one on Spanish Valley Drive, that's created a problem all of Beeman Road.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on. That Grand County is the biggest problem with flooding in Grand County. So, was that it for tonight? We just got our building permit list.
Why is, we moved on, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Why is Chase Richmond on the list twice?
He just has one permit, I think. I don't know why.
It's just listed there twice, so that, I just didn't know.
Yeah. Is it the same permit number?
No, it's
Parcel
different-
numbers are different.
Different numbers, yeah.
So you're asking for more clarification just to make sure on the stormwater, I'll get that back to you, and then you're moving on to the.
If you're happy with it and recommend it to us, we would.
I'll do some work on that.
Stamp it.
I don't know.
That's my only question.
It may be that oftentimes people, I think he applied earlier on than he was ready to get a permit. He applied once. And then when he came back with his documentation, he applied again instead of just sending me that information. And I just haven't deleted that redundant permit.
It's fine, I just thought I'd point it out, I was curious.
Hey, see you guys.
See you. Thank
Thanks.
You bet.
Thanks.
Good luck keeping us out of trouble.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, my wife thinks so too.
What's the addition on Mount Peel?
It's a bathroom.
On the night they on that downstairs by the bar room.
I'm not sure what the rest of the house looks like. Just look at that bathroom plan.
Well, if nobody cares, I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
I got a
Thanks,
trailer
guys.
with no